Our next search firm is the Metro Bureau, and so I will hand it off to you. I'm Amy Shellis, the president of the board. If you want, we can go around the room really quickly, since you weren't here for our roll call, or you can see our names either way. We have a mixture of new board members and well-seasoned board members. So I will hand it over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you for having us tonight. We appreciate it. And one of the things I just want to mention is that there are 3 of us involved in every search we do. We started doing superintendent searches as a service to our members, and you've been a member, a loyal member, for a long time. So we're going to parcel this out a little bit, and we're going to try our best to stay within the time limit. So I'm going to turn it over to Doug.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice for me to be back in the Board of Education room here. I proudly served for 8 years as the Director of Human Resources under Dr. Hughes. I was here from 1992 to the year 2000 when I left to become the superintendent in Allen Park.
So you didn't leave because I got on the board?
No. I think Mr. Guido is the only board member. No. Perhaps. Oh yeah, Mrs. Lane, right? Yes. So, and I also remember Dr. Mead from Henry Ford Community College. But to tell you a little bit about the Bureau, the Metro Bureau, if you're not familiar, was started in 1947, and we're housed at Wayne State University. We currently have 64 members, including the Dearborn Public Schools, as Carl said. And we are a school management organization, and we do research and share information with our members. We like to say that we help school districts manage their human and physical resources through collaboration with various educational leaders in the field. We do this through 2 different groups primarily. We have a council of chief negotiators that meets each month, and we also have a council of academic leadership that meets monthly. And my colleague, Tony Marasco, sitting on my right, he and I are responsible for putting on educational seminars. We start them in August each year and run them right through basically about the 1st of June. And they are for administrators, but board members are also welcome, and they cover a wide variety of topics, not only on collective bargaining, but on human resource issues. We have specialists in the field come in and teach these seminars in addition to attorneys. In addition to our K-12 members, the Bureau is also made up of Oakland University members, Wayne State University, of course, Wayne County Community College, Oakland Community College, and Mott Community College. So we have a very wide membership, and our reputation is that of a service organization. We believe that, like members, candidates are customers and should be treated with courtesy, honesty, and integrity. So that's the philosophy that we follow. Like most of the firms that you'll be interviewing tonight, you'll see that you have a number of retired school district administrators who are interviewing tonight. The difference is that we are still actively engaged with administrators here at the Bureau throughout our organization. So this helps put us in tune with district needs and with a number of talented candidates. So Carl, do you want to talk a little bit about our work with boards of education? Sure,
and I'll begin by just mentioning a couple of things. The Metro Bureau is a membership organization. We're a non-for-profit, and we service 65 school districts in Wayne, Oakland, Macomb County. We also work with Wayne State University, with county community colleges, and with Oakland University. So we have a very active K-12 network, and we also have kind of a liaison into higher education as well. Between the 3 of us, I think we have over 50 years of experience in school administration, much of it here in Wayne County. Doug mentioned that he has roots right here in Dearborn. I retired as a school superintendent in Romulus. Prior to that, I was the deputy superintendent just to the south of you in Dearborn 7. So when we say that we are attuned to the needs of districts in this part of the state, in this region, we really are. We work with those people and with those school districts on a daily basis. What I'm going to talk with you about first is our work with school boards. Part of our vision for doing the superintendent search is that we really have to make sure that we're on the same page with the Board of Education. Every Board of Education has different needs and different priorities. Sometimes they don't always verbalize that, and then we get surprised, the search firm gets surprised later on. So one of the things that we do in the beginning is we spend time in a study session with the Board of Education to flush out what it is, what your priorities are, and develop a really robust profile of the type of person that you're looking for to be the next leader in Dearborn Public Schools. You have a copy of a sample brochure we did for Wyandotte last year, so that gives you a little bit of an idea of the work that we do. But it's getting that profile and then developing a timeline with the Board of Education and getting that out front, communicating that to everyone so you're transparent, so people understand what you're looking for. So it's not a surprise if someone applies for the district and maybe they didn't qualify for an interview because the qualifications are listed in the profile, and you're still going to have people because this is a nice place to work. You've got a great reputation, and you're going to have people that apply that really aren't necessarily candidates. They don't necessarily meet your criteria, and it's us, getting that out in front so people aren't mystified by that, and they understand the difference. The other thing that we do early on is we get the community involved. You have a big community, of a very diverse community, both ethnically and socioeconomically. And it's our endeavor to make sure that everybody who feels they want to be a part of that process is a part of that process in some way, shape, or form, whether that's a series of community meetings where we share the profile and share the timeline and all the steps that the board is going to take in their search, or whether it's participating in the interview or asking questions of the candidates. There's ways to do that. And again, every board has their own ideas on what that should look like. So early on, it's our goal to work very personally with the board to make sure that we communicate with each other on that, and that you know what to expect and that we know what to expect. We try to make sure there are no surprises, but I will tell you, there's always surprises in a superintendent search. Usually they're good surprises, but you never know. But we try to work through those. We don't keep secrets. We do, as Tony's going to share with you in a minute, we do quite a bit of advanced work on this before you ever see the first candidate. With that said, I'm going to turn it back to Doug to talk about recruitment.
Okay, thank you, Carl. The most important thing in your search, obviously, is recruiting top-notch candidates. As Carl said, you may get a number of applicants. You might get, 60 people who apply, but candidates are the serious ones that meet the criteria that you have established. They've got the background and they've got the potential to lead your district. So our goal is to bring talented people to you, and we will do that in a number of ways. Carl mentioned the brochure that was part of our packet that we gave to you. That would be the first thing that we would set up after our meeting with you, because that is what's going to attract the majority of candidates right away. Once a brochure is ready and that's sent out, there would also be mass mailings throughout the state of Michigan and whatever region you would like to have us go beyond. We can, we can go into Ohio. We can make it nationwide. We could do ads in Education Week newspaper if you would prefer to do a national search, or we could target it to the north central states. But we will do targeted mailings, and then we will also do personal calls to people that we think are potential candidates. We know a number of people who currently serve as superintendents in districts that might be a smaller or mid-size, would be looking to move up to a large district. As you know, you're one of the top districts now in the state of Michigan in terms of enrollment. So we'd be looking at people who are currently superintendents, people who are assistant superintendents, first-line administrators, whether it be high school principals, middle school principals. So we would be contacting anyone and everyone and telling them what a good position this is, what a great district this is. It'll be very easy for me to do, since I spent 8 years here, and I've always been a big backer of the Dearborn schools, and I still live in Allen Park, and I follow you and know the accomplishments that you've made in recent years, and the new buildings that have been constructed here. And when I first became HR director, we were over at the old Miller School, and then we moved over here to Ten Lake, I think it was about 1993, 94. But anyway, we will work hard to recruit a number of top top-notch candidates here for your consideration. Then once we have the candidates, then we get into the screening and the reference checks before we bring any candidates to you. And Tony will tell you a little bit more about that.
Thank you. I'm bookended by two ex-superintendents. I am now an ex-superintendent. I was formerly and retired from West Bloomfield. I was the assistant superintendent of human resources and labor relations. And prior to doing that, I spent 22 years as a teacher, administrator, and a high school principal in Hamtramck District. So I'm quite familiar with Wayne County and very diverse communities. So that's a little bit about my background. And once we get the applications, the three of us, not one of us, but the three of us, will screen each application and their credentials to make sure they're qualified and meet at least the minimum requirements for that were established by the Board of Education. That's the number one thing. That's probably the hardest thing there is going through all that paperwork, making sure that people are qualified who have applied for the job. Some people may say they got 150 applications for that job, but you got to remember some of those people never had an education or never worked in education, or they just applied because they saw how much it pays. So it's our job to really screen those applications before we spend a lot of time with them. Once we've established the candidates, the three of us will screen them, which includes a 30-minute phone interview with each one of them, and where we assess them in 7 leadership skills: relationship skills and student focus. And we will create a preliminary list of 5 to 8 candidates from that. And understand that, again, we will review their applications, we'll establish their qualifications, make sure they have them, and then we have a 30-minute phone interview trying to distinguish their leadership skills and their relationship skills and their community skills. Once that's established, we begin our reference checks prior to you interviewing them, because again, we don't want any surprises. And of course, all applicants have a list of references that I'm sure they wouldn't put them down on a piece of paper unless they were going to be good references. Because of our contacts that we have and still being able and working with the education system now with the Metro Bureau, we have contacts across the state. So we can call people that are not on the list who may have worked with them, especially their immediate supervisors. Those are the people that you really want to contact and really get an honest reference check from them. And that's very, very important. Immediate supervisors are always contacted, even if they're not on the list. Of course, there's a board involvement, and at the direction of the board or a subcommittee of the board is involved in looking either at all the applicants or at the candidates recommended by our team. And again, because of our connections, we have that opportunity to call people that we know. I'm also the executive director of the Michigan Negotiators Association in the state of Michigan, and that's knowing HR directors across the state. So the contacts are there for us to have. Carl?
Thank you, Tony. So a couple of things that Tony mentioned. At the direction of the board, some boards like to be involved in the entire search. Some boards want to view every single application. And I have to give credit to boards that want to do that. Most boards don't. Most boards hire us to do that and do the screening and give you what we think are our best candidates. Your obligation to your community is to demonstrate that you have found and sought out the best candidates for this position. And whether that's a person who came from inside your organization or whether that's someone that came 3 states over, every board has their own priorities. But you know, the best story you can tell your community is that we cast a broad net. And we help you do that. And then we work with you on the selection process so that we meet your needs and, again, and your level of involvement. So as Tony mentioned, much of our selection is really pre-selection before you even see any of the candidates. We're interviewing, we're screening, we're finding things out, because one of the things that you already know, that a superintendent is a highly visible position. I think superintendents and building principals are probably the most visible. You're going to have people coming to you. You're going to get emails about this candidate, about that candidate. We want this one, we don't want that one. Most good candidates have experience in school leadership, and believe it or not, as well-intentioned as we all are, sometimes there are people that don't like us. I find that hard to believe, but there are people that don't like us. You're going to hear about that. Our job is to make sure that you're not surprised by any of those stories. When part of the screening that we do with every candidate is, all right, so you've answered our questions, you've told us what you want us to know. Is there anybody we shouldn't contact? And if so, what are they going to say about you? Because we want to be prepared for that eventuality, because it will come out, and inevitably it does. So we help make sure that the board is prepared for that too. In terms of the selection, one of the things that we also do, just as we work with the board on the profile, is we work with the board on the interviewing process. We develop interview questions. We don't necessarily take questions from board members, but if there are questions you want answered, we certainly do that, but we prefer to write our own questions, and those questions are geared toward the profile that you help us develop. So they're specific questions, they're pointed, and we vet them to make sure that they're all legal questions and fair questions for everyone. And so we're consistent. We use a very simple rating system. We spend a little time with you to make sure everybody understands our rating system and everybody is kind of playing on the same page, so that there's no gaming of the system, and everybody is clear on what their job is during the interview process. We also maintain confidentiality. We've talked to you about how well networked we are. People will call us because they trust us, because of our reputation, because of the Metro Bureau's reputation. You know, this is a very risky situation for someone to go through this public process while they still have a day job. And most good candidates do still have a day job. So we want to make sure that we create that open environment where they can talk to us, and we will keep their names confidential as long as we can. And we still want to be compliant with the Open Meetings Act. We don't, you know, and we'll work with you on that to make sure that you know what the expectations and demands of the Open Meetings Act are. So we normally recommend 2 rounds of interviews. There's a preliminary round where we start with a field of 6 to 8 candidates, and we narrow that down to 2 or 3 finalists that we feel most closely aligned with the board goals. As I mentioned to you, we have a rating system, but then we also ask for subjective rating too. Because as you're listening to their responses to questions, you're judging them. You're judging them for who they are, you're judging them for what they are. And so we have a go-round with the Board of Education. Of course, at the time that they interview, that's always a public endeavor. And so everybody's name is out there, everybody's name is in the paper. Usually, most candidates prefer that their names are not released to the public prior to that. And again, we work with the board on that and how we maintain confidentiality. So whether that means doing a preliminary screening where you look at all of the credentials that each candidate submits, but we take their names off, so it's not subject to FOIA, because technically that's our property at that point. We can do that, or we can make it a much more public process. Again, that's based on what the board is comfortable with. The other thing that we do is we want you to see these candidates at their best, so we prep each candidate for the interview. We let them, some of these candidates haven't interviewed in a number of years. Some of them have, probably most of them, have never interviewed for a superintendent position. And we don't want them to be surprised, because we don't want you to be surprised. So we prep them. It doesn't mean that we go over the questions with them. But there are all kinds of questions, superintendent question samples available on the internet. We live in this age, and they will have access to those. And our expectation is that they prep for that interview. They should have prepared, and we tell them they should have an answer prepared for any kind of question you think anybody is going to ask a superintendent, because we want you to see them at the top of their game. Finally then, upon selection, we get to that point where the board has decided, and we help develop consensus in that process. And our team we're one of the few superintendent searches that that doesn't turn over contract negotiations to someone who hasn't really been involved in the process. Again, working with the Board of Education, you set parameters for salary and working conditions and all those things ahead of time. We share that information. We make sure that the candidates are aware. So one of the worst surprises that can happen to a Board of Education is you've had a group of candidates gone through the whole process. You've set your sights on candidate number one. That's the one you offer the position, and they say, well, gee, I'm really flattered, but you know, can I call you a year from next Tuesday and let you know when I make up my mind? That's a colossal waste of everybody's time, and it's disrespectful to the board. We make sure that all of our candidates know that that's not a deal. If you have an interview, our expectation, we make this very clear, is that if you're offered the job, you're going to take that job. We make sure that their demands in terms of salary and working conditions are consistent with what you're offering. You know, some people think the world of themselves, and they'll come in and they'll look at a job with a salary that's maybe half of what they want, and they'll think, well, I'm going to be so good that the board's just going to naturally double the salary because it's me. So we make sure that those kinds of things don't happen. But you'd be surprised how many people just are unaware of those kinds of negotiations. You know, being a superintendent, being offered a superintendent job, Doug and I can tell you from experience, it's the first time you really don't have a union contract or an administrator's contract or anything else to guide you on salary. It's you and the board. And so it's an eye-opener for a lot of people. So we work with our candidates just as we work with the board to make sure that that's a process that's transparent and fair for both sides. With that said, I'm going to turn it back to Doug and Tony, who are going to close for us, and then we'll take questions.
Okay, thanks, Carl. So hearing what you've heard us present on, I guess the question might be in your mind now, you know, why choose the Metro Bureau? I know you have 4 different firms you're considering tonight, and we feel that the Metro Bureau would be a strong candidate search firm for you because of the fact, as we've outlined earlier, we have local, regional, and statewide networks that we're a party of. We know people who are interested in becoming superintendents, who are superintendents, and would really look at the challenge of Dearborn as something that they would want to do next. I think our reputation has been strong. As you heard me say, we've been around since 1947. Dearborn has been a long-time member of the Metro Bureau, as have many of the districts throughout Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties. We now have members in Monroe County and Genesee County and St. Clair County. So the Metro Bureau has grown during the time period. So we know the region, and we take the time to get to know you as a board and to get to know your district before we begin to market this position. And Tony, you want to continue from there? And
sure. Like Doug said, you know, we're going to take the time to know the board and the district. Doug already knows the district well, and some of the board members. And we're also going to take the time to know the community, because that's very important to the district. We know it's a very diverse community, and we have to make sure our candidates are aware of what kind of community it is. So the better we know the community, the better we can get candidates to understand the community. And we're willing to talk to community members and have community meetings and get their points of view too, if the board wishes us to do so. One of the things that Doug, Carl, and myself have, we were all HR directors in our career. That 50 years of experience that Carl was talking about is just in HR. We have hired a lot of people in our day, teachers, administrators, and superintendent searches. So you're getting a nice package here, more than I think you can get from any other service organization. And with that, are there any questions?
Well, I guess I'll start. So I know that you're all familiar with Dearborn, but I think that as a district in the state of Michigan, we've grown. When I was first elected to the board, we were the 11th largest district in the state. We're now the 3rd largest district in the state, which to me poses some challenges, you know, as well as opportunities. But one of them being is that we may attract, typically in Michigan in a 3,000 student school district, you could hire a high school principal to be the next superintendent. I'm not confident that that's necessarily the only qualification in a district our size. We have had a non-traditional candidate with Brian Whiston, which proved to be successful, obviously. And so as a board member, I want to make sure that we cast the largest net possible. I want to make sure that we're not just looking in Metro Detroit, that we're not just looking in Michigan, that we're not just looking in Ohio. I personally think that with the district that we have in the state of Michigan, we're very large. In the country, we're very small compared to district sizes. You know, you go outside of the state and some districts are 100,000, 500,000 students. I want to make sure that we're finding every nook and cranny in the country to get the best candidates for us. And that includes non-traditional candidates. I think that our district has changed in its structure over the last 15 years, and we're now in a position with a very strong curriculum-oriented administration that we could look at business candidates, for example. What is your experience in getting a broad base of candidates, not just from Michigan, but outside of the state, and the non-traditional candidates?
Well, 10 years ago, search consultants would travel the country. They would interview state boards and state organizations to find out who the big candidates were, who was looking, who we might be able to lure to Michigan. Nowadays, it's all done through technology and advertising, and so the advantage to that is it saves a lot of money in travel time and flight time and meals and hotels and everything else. But most districts now who are looking nationally, and I respect you for doing that, because you don't want to limit yourself just to Michigan. The best candidate may be from Michigan, they may not be. So there are several national publications. Education Week is one of those. And New York Times is another one. And if you've looked in those publications, you know that there are top education jobs nationally that are posted in there. One of the things that we included in our proposal was an advertising budget should you choose to go on a national level. And so that's included. We have connections with those organizations. We know, again, who they are, and we are very good at making sure, with our human resources background, that people who are applying, people that are going to get an interview in your district, are coming because they're coming to something, not because they're running from something. And that's a lot of what you get with national searches. You get people that, well, I've got my 30 years in Illinois or Michigan or Wisconsin, and now I can collect my pension and come to Dearborn and make out like a bandit. That may be the best candidate for you, but it shouldn't be the qualifying reason that someone's coming here. We want someone that's coming here for the right reasons, and we want someone that matches the profile. So again, that part of it is the same where someone from within the state or without. The advertising is different. The recruiting, again, in working with the board, you may have some people that you want us to contact. You may have heard about John or Jane Doe from Wisconsin, who's really done some amazing things, and the district they're working in has a lot of similarities to yours. You may want us to reach out. And again, because of our backgrounds in human resources, we know who to contact to set those things up, so that we can make that into a situation that turns out to yield the right candidates for you.
Anyone else? Joe?
Based on your experience lately with searches, what would you expect the initial volume of applicants to be? What could we consider? What should we expect? Is Michigan an attractive state to outside? Not really yet, right?
Not terribly.
Okay.
Not terribly. And if you look at some other districts, you'll see, when you see the pool of candidates, you'll get applicants. Again, we draw a distinction between applicants and candidates. Candidates are the people that we want, that you want. Applicants are people that know how to fill out the forms and that are looking for a job, maybe qualified, maybe not. When you look at the salary scales, I know this is something that you're aware of. I'm not going to surprise you with this statement, but when you're a superintendent, usually the only way you get a raise as a superintendent is you change jobs. Unfortunately, that's an economic reality in many areas of the country. It's just never popular to give a superintendent a raise because you want to keep them. It happens, but it happens rarely. So that makes Michigan not the best state. We do have, and we don't have the pension system that we used to have. So in the olden days, when someone came into our state with the intention of working for 10 years to get insurance and some of the benefits, that's not the same deal that that people had 10 years ago. However, this is an attractive district, number one, because of the reputation, because of some of the things that you've done under Brian's leadership, under Jeremy's leadership, under John's leadership. You make this an attractive place, especially for someone that wants to work and has experience working in a diverse community. This is a very robust, vibrant area. I don't have to tell you that. You all live here. And having looked over my shoulder when I was in Dearborn 7 for 5 years, I saw it. And I always had a lot of respect for what was going on in this district. And you'll get some good candidates coming from out of state. But again, you have to rely on the search firm to distinguish between true candidates and people that are just coming because they, you might meet the need for the next chapter in their life. You want them to come to something here.
So go ahead.
Well, just one thing I'm sitting here thinking about is that not only are we a diverse and large, robust district, but we're also very unique in our relationship with our community college. That makes it a different collaborative effort for any superintendent coming here. I want to make sure that we continue to strengthen those because we have developed a lot of programs, and that's the direction that we see the state heading in these kinds of efforts of five-year colleges and whatnot. And we've already are ahead of the curve on that. Would that be something that would really be a challenge to try to find somebody who, because we're unique in, especially we're probably the only one in the state that's a P14 district,
P14,
and nationwide I think there's only, so would that kind of setup be something that's more attractive or something that is going to be a learning curve that we're going to have to accept?
Well, it can kind of go both ways. But the way I would look at it, because of the trend that's happening in education in Michigan with the early colleges, it is a unique situation to have your own community college. And if you wanted to set up that and expand on that early college, that's what you sell to the candidate. Look what you can do. You have your own community college right in your district that you're part of. And that early college program is at your fingertips. That's kind of unique. There's no other place. There's other early colleges in the state of Michigan. West Bloomfield, we set up one with the Oakland Community College, but that's different. It's a different relationship to a point where you're begging the community college to come and join this program. The uniqueness is that you are the community college also. That may be very, very attractive to a superintendent, knowing that and the way the training is going towards early college education.
And I think we would also, describe that in our brochure that we'd be working with you. You would outline that criteria. That's very important, and the fact that you do have a president at Henry Ford College, but that he or she be working, in conjunction with you because you're the board for both the college and the P12, and the unique working relationship. The first year that I was here in 1992-93, I was the human resource director for the college and for the P12, and both organizations were growing like crazy. And so Dr. Hughes and Dr. Mazzara came to me, and I'm sure Dr. Mead would probably remember that at the time, and said, you're doing a great job, but we need two HR directors now, one for the college and one for the P12. And basically they gave me my choice, and I told both the gentlemen at the time that my entire career had been P12, and so I made the choice to stay with the P12. And then Dr. Barnett was selected and went on and did an excellent job at the college. But it just shows the uniqueness, because we were growing back then, and of course the college has continued to grow. But it is a unique working relationship, and the superintendent here has the privilege of working with this board, who's also the board of trustees for the college. So, but to answer your question, we would definitely highlight that in the brochure and the criteria, so the candidate coming in would know that this isn't like a traditional P12 in other districts.
And I think we're unique in our setup, but it's not a unique concept that many superintendents are working with community colleges across the country.
I understand that.
But it should be definitely a point that we look at when we're trying to select somebody, is what is their exposure to that. Oh, go ahead.
Just a quick question. You mentioned brochure. Would you still do a traditional printed brochure with mailings? Would that be your approach, or something digital or electronic?
Normally, it's all electronic. If you stipulate that you'd like it mailed out, we'd
so
be
when you
happy.
say brochure, it's not a printed brochure.
It's printed for you tonight, but normally what happens is that goes on your website, it goes on our website, and we have lists of every administrator across the state, and we have national organizations that we also can make contact with to make sure, again, that we cast the broadest net possible. But typically everything is done electronically. It's better penetration. You want someone. You don't want someone.
You did mention postage, so
Yeah.
because I did make a note of that.
I have
Postage.
mailing, right?
That's an old term, you know.
Yeah, no, we did use the word
mailing.
mailings, you're right.
Okay.
I have a question regard to the fee structure. I'm a little confused, and maybe I'm just not reading this right, but on page 4, you talk about the fee structure being $12,000 paid in 2 installments, and then on page 5, there's a 3 installment. And so I didn't know if these were 2 different fee structures, or is it just written differently?
It's just a breakdown of the time on the 3.
It's just a breakdown on the time. Normally, the first installment is half, and then the second installment is the balance, which is paid after you have someone signed, sealed, delivered.
Oh, okay, because this one is broke down into 3. So.
Yeah, I think that was just an allocation of the time that we were spending.
Right.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
we estimated we were spending.
Okay, now I
Right.
understand what you're saying. Sorry.
okay.
What do you expect the fees, I mean, I know that this is your base fee, but there's other things that are not included in that. Can you give me an example of some of the things that wouldn't be included?
Sure. If you wanted advertisement in national publications, that's a la carte. You would pay for that. An ad in, a 2-week ad in Education Week, depending on the size of it, is anywhere from probably $500 to a couple $1,000 if you wanted a full-page ad. New York Times similarly. But again, there are lots of state organizations, state superintendent organizations, where we can do an electronic posting for no charge at all. And if there are states that you want us to target, or you want us to target every state. We're local. We don't charge any of our members for travel expenses because our jobs, it's understood that we travel throughout the 3 counties, so you wouldn't incur expenses for meals or any of that kind of thing. One of the things that can happen with a national search, though, normally there's an expectation if someone's coming across the country that you're going to help with the expenses there, so you would incur some expenses there. So just as a preliminary, not knowing any better, we put in $3,500 as a budgetary item. But again, those are all things that
I just wanted to make sure that the travel and lodging was for candidates
Yep,
coming
not
in.
for
and
us.
Not for us.
you.
not for us.
Well, maybe Doug, because he only lives 4 minutes away.
Well, I thank you for coming. It is our hope that we will come to a conclusion tonight. So, either way, somebody will contact you tomorrow and let you know what our decision is. It's my hope that we can make a decision tonight because I think it's important for us to get this process started. So I do appreciate your time, and if there's no other questions, then have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity.